Millenniums ago, there was a war between the human world and the underworld. But somebody from the underworld woke up to justice and stood up against the Legion alone. He became a legend, the legendary visionary Adi Shankar. Granted the power of license holding, he is set to craft his next masterpiece, the Devil May Cry anime, only on Netflix. Join us today as we study the mind of one of this world's most talented storytellers, as only he can weather the approaching storm and find out what lies beyond the medium. Episode 9, when directed by Adi Shankar, even a devil may cry. Welcome back, everybody. Today we're going to be talking about the Devil May Cry anime. Chandler, how you feel about that?
I wish I could say that I had a lot more positives to say about it, but I have a feeling that this is going to be a more negative episode.
So, in conclusion,
Adi Shankar's writing,
not great.
yeah. I was hoping you would.
You do it again. Sorry, my bad. Yeah. But yeah, we're gonna go ahead and talk about the anime. I guess to start with, important thing to note is that a lot of people probably aren't familiar with Devil May Cry, right? So, just as a little brief rundown, Devil May Cry is a video game series created by Capcom, with a history of peaks and valleys. Everything started with a man named Hideki Kamiya. Kamiya is a well-known game developer credited with directing projects such as Bayonetta, Beautiful Joe, and Resident Evil 2. After his success directing Resident Evil 2 back in 1998, he was given the role of lead once again by Shinji Mikami, the creator of Resident Evil, with the directive of crafting a more action-centric sequel. Kamiya, however, felt very restricted by the established mechanics of the previous Resident Evil games, and as a result, the project became a new IP known as Devil May Cry. The game would share many aspects of the Resident Evil games, such as a horror-centric atmosphere and bioengineered monster enemies, which would be rebranded as demons in the final game, while differentiating itself through a new stylish combat system featuring melee weapons, guns, and other supernatural abilities such as the Devil Trigger. The first game comes out to positive reception and good sales, and so Capcom immediately plans a sequel, with the next game very strangely being handed off to an arcade division instead of the team that worked on the first game. Kamiya himself apparently didn't even know that a sequel was being worked on until someone on the dev team for DMC 2 asked him for some design documents from the first game. Kamiya would go on to leave Capcom in 2006 to found Platinum Games. As a result of these strange development decisions, the team in charge of DMC 2 was seriously struggling to get the game together in time for its planned release. With only 6 months left in the dev cycle, the lead position was shifted from an unknown developer to Hideaki Itsuno, who did what he could to salvage what was ultimately a project that was doomed from the start. DMC 2 comes out to disappointing reviews due to the changes in the game mechanics, story, and the characters. Itsuno convinces Capcom to give him a chance to direct a third game with him at the lead from the start, and we get the now legendary Devil May Cry 3 with fresh mechanics that would become staples of the series, such as the style switching mechanic. It's got a dope-ass story primarily focused on the rivalry between Dante and his brother Virgil. DMC 3 is a resounding success. With time, we move on to DMC 4, which once again goes through some weird development issues, and we get a game that is still pretty good, but very clearly incomplete. Capcom, being unsatisfied with the sales of DMC 4, decides to reboot the series, handing the reins over to Ninja Theory, who put out the infamous DMC Devil May Cry, which featured very drastic overhauls to the story and several characters that fans really did not like. Which, you know, that sounds kind of similar, doesn't it?
Yeah.
So after 3 sequels and a failed reboot, Capcom once again falls to their knees and begs the sex god Itsuno to save them again. Itsuno returns once more to direct Devil May Cry 5 in 2019, promising that the game would exceed everyone's expectations, which it did. DMC 5 is currently Capcom's 10th best-selling game, right behind Resident Evil 4. Itsuno has since left Capcom, and the future of the games are now in a strange limbo state, where nobody is sure what's going to happen next, whether there's going to be another direct sequel or if they're going to try and remaster or reboot the games again. Who knows? And then seemingly out of nowhere, we get this Netflix anime. So
Yeah.
let's go ahead and talk about the anime then.
Yeah. So what was it that you did like about the anime itself? I
Yeah.
think we should get the positive that away just because there's not a lot of them.
Yeah.
But personally, I think the biggest component was the animation was pretty solid for the most part. Minus the 3D shenanigans. 3D animation is not fantastic. From the Japan side of the world, but in here it was no exception. It was pretty jarring to see these 3D monsters. Comparatively to the well-designed 2D characters. I just think the biggest component of the Devil May Cry series is the demons, and when your demons are pretty unflattering, it's showing that there's little care to the most integral part of the
Okay.
game. Which
I don't mean to interrupt you, but you did you did say to start off with the things we liked, and then you immediately went to talking about the 3D
I know
models.
it's so hard with this show because you're like I like this, but everything associated with it sucks. So my bad, my bad.
Okay.
I like the animation.
Yeah, the animation.
And
How about the opening? Right, I know you like the opening.
so as an opening, it's entertaining. I like how it's using music from the or the early 2000s, Limp Bizkit. And we did previously talk about this. Don't consider it really an intro. It's more of an opening sequence. I feel like intros, as you said, have some things foreshadowing events that will happen in the show,
Mm-hmm.
and really nothing's like tease. Like characters are teased, but no like big events are like, oh, this is going to happen. This is going to Dante is going to do this in the show. Nothing like that. It's just Dante, just eating pizza and doing cool fights, like cool fighting shit that does not happen at all.
Yeah.
But again, I found it more entertaining more than like, oh my god, this is visually like stunning and you know, kind of its own little in depth like story thing going on.
But you ultimately did like the composition and like the music choice and like the art style of the opening, right?
Yeah, yeah, I would say that. Yeah.
Anything else besides the animation and the opening?
Uh, I think there was some depth that was explored into it, but not as much as I would have wanted to, just because of person behind this whole project.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like we could talk more about that, specifically episode 6
Yeah,
later on.
yeah, that too. Um, okay, in terms of stuff that I liked, I would definitely say there might be a little bit of controversy in here, even between just you and me. Um,
Really?
yeah, a little bit. I did like, I liked the songs that were picked. As to whether they were appropriate for the scene that was happening in the show is kind of another conversation. But I did kind of like the use of songs like Guerrilla Radio from Rage Against the Machine. There's a part where they play Last Resort by Papa Roach. Um, like you said, the opening has Limp Bizkit. Like that was kind of charming, and I feel like does kind of fit the atmosphere of goofy Devil May Cry type stuff. Um, and it's interesting to capture like that kind of like where music and art and stuff was at that time period. Although there is another reason that that time period is being referenced, which we will talk about later.
Yes, it's kind of
Um,
unavoidable.
yeah, the animation was good for the most part. I'm not a huge fan of the 3D stuff, but I'll talk about that later when I talk about the demon designs.
Hmm.
But for the most part, like the action sequences and stuff, like the choreography was pretty decent. That scene of him fighting the mercenaries in episode 2, I think, is pretty good, honestly, where he's like, running up the walls and teleporting and stuff like that. It was cool to
Yeah,
see that. That was a good action sequence.
yeah.
Um,
It was a varying character of Dante for the most part.
there was some stuff that was done with episode 6 that I don't think was done best in execution, but had some really good ideas. That could have worked out good if it was just handled a bit better. Uh, I do like the design of the White Rabbit. I think as a villain, he does fit into the world very well. Uh,
I
as for his character, that's kind of a different
yeah
thing. But the sequences in which he was on screen before his character was developed more after episode 6, like action sequence rise, I felt he was very entertaining.
yeah, I really did like how White Rabbit was animated, especially in the first episode. I was pretty not stunned, but I was like, okay, all right, this is animated better than Invincible. We're at a very good start.
It's a low bar to clear, but
It's a low bar to clear, but there's a lot of character to White Rabbit's mannerisms when he's animated, which I did like a whole lot.
yeah. Um,
He is a very visually pleasing character to look at,
yeah.
especially
Yeah, I think there
with
was a
all
lot
the
of care put
emotions.
into the character design at the very least.
Mm.
Um, there was some fun little stuff with the action sequences too. Like I like how Dante keeps breaking the guns because he doesn't have Ebony and Ivory yet.
Yeah,
That's pretty
that was
cool.
cool. One thing I did like was Dante doing the dance game and him being ass at it. I like when our characters are silly and can be a little bit of a loser when they're like,
Yeah, and
because
that's
when you're
appropriate to his character too.
yeah, yeah, which I did like a whole lot.
Is that it for everything that we liked?
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. Well, moving on then. Let's go ahead and start dissecting the show. Sorry. So let's start with the story, right? So the story for this show takes many liberties with its source material, and the result is a. By the way, we're going into full spoilers. So if you haven't seen the show yet and you care about that, like, I feel like we haven't been great about mentioning the fact that we just go into full spoilers every time. But yeah, if you want to watch it, go watch it for yourself now before you listen to the rest of this.
If you want to watch it.
If you want to watch it. And the result is a continuity that is completely divorced from the games and its established lore. If you were hoping to see any story beats from any of the existing media, then you're going to be disappointed with this show. The broad strokes of Sparta, his sons, and the demon world are there, but the way that the demons function and their purpose in the story has been dramatically changed to make them sympathetic and humanized. The demon world in the anime is referred to as Makai, where low-level human-like demons exist alongside the more monstrous demons that fans of the games would be more familiar with. And the changes made to the way the world works leads to a lot of different inconsistencies. How did you feel about the way that the demons were treated? First of all,
Um so I just want to preface this. I haven't really played any of the DMC games or at all. I vicariously played it through watching you and watching YouTube clips, so I'm already an expert in this field. Um I what makes Sparta so special is that he, for the most part, from what we're aware of in the entire series, is the only demon to be good. And that's such a big deal.
the
But
only
when you
exception there would be Trish,
would be
uh,
Trish.
but she was like a weird exception too because she was created by Mundus.
Yeah.
But he
To,
was like the only natural demon that was a
yeah.
good guy, basically. Yes.
So when you have this integral character to the mythos be pushed aside as like, yeah, there's other good demons, and they're like, oh, we need to immigrate. I just want to save my family. It doesn't make him as special, especially with the cause and effect of his spell that he does, which portrays him in not as such a good light in the
Mm-hmm.
anime.
Mm-hmm.
I was not a big fan. Just putting because obviously demons are based off of Christianity, Judaism, and Catholicism, and whatever other religions. Most of the time, demons are just straight up evil. But when you have demons be good, and then you have other demons be really bad, it's super jarring. And I get what they're trying to do, but for the sake of the show, or not for the show, but for the story itself from the games, it doesn't mesh well, and it's just adding these weird politics into it that are completely inappropriate. So
Hmm.
I did not like the demons being humanized at all.
Hmm.
They're literally in the games, they are literally there for you to fucking kill, and they're like, "Oh, he is evil, must kill him, or otherwise he's going to, demonize the whole planet and have enslave humanity."
Yeah. The purpose of Sparta in the games is that he is the only, like, he's unique because he was the only one who had like empathy and like a human heart basically, and that made him strong was what the deal was. That's why he was able to 1v everybody basically in hell, uh, and then just live peacefully in the human world for a while. The only thing I would say is I do like the only thing about the demons being sympathetic that I think works to the story's effect is that there are demons there who are like upset about what Sparta did because they locked him, he locked them basically away with the bad demons, you know.
Hmm.
So I feel like that does create an interesting conflict. Um, but you know, the White Rabbit's character develops in a way that makes him kind of one of those hypocritical villains who, like, his motivation doesn't really stick with him all the way through, and he just becomes like a lunatic by the end. So
Yeah.
yeah, I think I don't know. I feel like you could write an engaging story with this setup, but the way it was handled, and like you mentioned, the politics and stuff that are a component of the story, um, make it feel very forced and unsubtle.
Also, just to add in there, one justification I did not care for was how demons exist. They're like, "Oh, they were humans," and it's like, so you have this Wendigo-looking motherfucker that was at some point a human, which, and you have like a lizard guy. It's like I don't need to know where the demons came from. I don't like how it's like, oh, demons are humans. Actually, they're a human. They're evolved form of humans. It's like, just have them as fucking, you know, interdimensional beings that exist in hell, or
Mhm.
something that's like similar to hell. Just why do we need to have them like be scientifically explained? I didn't like that. I thought that was super fucking cool.
Yeah, I agree. I do agree with that. Um, but also even with the demons that are not like sympathetic, right? Like the ones that are just supposed to be straight up monsters, there's still like really weird, dumb inconsistencies with how the world operates. Like there's that episode in which they are holding a plane full of people hostage, including Dante, and Agni and Rudra are there holding like a detonator for C4 explosives. Demons with superpowers and crazy weapons and shit should not be holding people hostage by man made explosives. That entire plane scene and what follows is probably the best example of all the ways this show is wrong. You have the badly 3D animated and poorly redesigned versions of Agni and Rudra, the unsubtle usage of the words devil trigger as an actual term in the show, and the lack of purpose and importance placed upon that transformation due to replacing Virgil, the most important character to Devil May Cry besides Dante, with Agni and Rudra. And then you don't even get to see like the cool part about them being there. You don't get to see Dante use Agni and Rudra as the swords because they changed the design. Their heads aren't the swords anymore.
And to go back on, the demons holding people hostage on a plane, it's because of it's an allegory for politics, which, they're fucking demons. They can literally blow up the fucking plane with their wind and fire powers. They don't need
Yeah, he
fucking
can make
detonator.
fire with his hands. What is the purpose of him holding a C4 explosive? And it's like, oh, it's because it's like a hostage thing. It's an
Yeah,
allegory for, yeah, you know. And
yeah,
it's just we'll get more into that later. But how about we talk about Dante?
yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about Dante.
So the biggest change I think from the games to this show is that Dante in this version doesn't know who Sparta is because Sparta didn't chill with his family after the Demon War.
Yeah, he pulled up to Eve, put a load in her, and left. As it seems, they
I
gave them a
guess
bunch of
so.
money.
And
Yeah,
we don't know where he is now, which means he wasn't there to hand down his swords or the amulet. Um, him not being there for his family is just a really odd decision that changes a lot of the way the existing lore worked. And Dante as a character feels kind of weak. He gets beat up pretty often because he's supposed to be like inexperienced, right? I feel like I don't have much to say about Dante because the show doesn't actually really focus on him that much. Preferring to
And
focus on Lady more than half the time, who is not really a likable character. Lady effortlessly defeats Dante multiple times in the show, even after he unlocks his DT. Um, I don't feel like humans should be any match for a son of Sparta ever. He should be effortlessly swagging on people, if not most demons. And characterization wise, this Dante feels like a mix of aspects from multiple different characters, most especially Nero from the games, which leads me to another issue. But before I talk about the voice acting, what did you think about Dante from what you've seen in the games and the cutscenes and stuff to his portrayal in the TV show?
I think the issue that I've noticed is that like it's really characterization. I feel like whoever wrote Dante for the show didn't might have had Nero mixed up with him. I really feel like somewhere in me, feels like that whoever was watching this and producing this, it said they're a fan of the games, must have got Nero and Dante mixed up
Mm-hmm.
in some bits, especially when Dante unlocks his DT and Devil Trigger plays.
Yeah.
The reason why it's played is because one, it uses the word Devil Trigger, but the thing is that is Nero's theme. It's like solely associated with him long before he even gets his DT. It's just his battle theme. So not to put blame here on anyone, but Adi Shankar, I don't think you understand the series when you're getting your themes of characters mixed up. And, the voice actor for Nero being voicing
So
Dante.
that's literally what I was about to go into before I pass it off. So Dante in the anime is voiced by Johnny Young Bosch, who voices Nero, the son of Virgil, in the games. And while I think he's a great voice actor, I think literally anybody else would have been a better cast for this role. If you weren't going to get Ruben Langdon, then the least you could have done was find somebody who could give like a unique performance or comparable performance. Nero is a character I really like, and it's just weird to hear his voice coming out of another character's mouth in the same series that he's from. If Nero eventually does show up in the show, then it's like you've made an unnecessary issue that's going to confuse people. You shouldn't have used an established character's voice actor and used it for a pre-existing character. On top of that, like he said, he's using Nero's theme from DMC5 for that transformation scene, a song that is about Nero and his character and his journey. So it's just weird. It's like you mashed up a bunch of things people liked from the source material into a scene, but you didn't understand why people liked that stuff or what any of it meant.
I like to think it's a funnier theory where he just literally he thought that Nero was Dante from DMC4. I'm just going. That's my head canon is that he fucking forgot, and
Yeah,
then after
cuz
writing, it, he
I
was
don't
like,
know, dude.
"Oh,
Like his I mean, you look at him in pictures of cosplay and stuff, and it's like the dude clearly knows who Dante is. I mean, there's 5 different games with him in it. It was just an odd decision. I just don't get why you did that. It's like if any other show, like the comparison I tried to make back when we talked about this before was like a Halo show where Keith David was voicing Master Chief. You know, it would just be an odd decision regardless of how you tried to justify it.
yeah." It's very like again, I have like surface level, or I have a little bit more in depth knowledge of Devil May Cry. Here, as a scholar of the DMC series,
Scholar.
it's just like you know, like at first when you told me that, I was like, well, who really? I was like, it's a young Dante, who cares? But like going back and listening, it's like, oh shit, that's pretty close to Nero's voice. Very different,
Yeah, like
very
Johnny Young
different.
Bosch isn't trying to put a different inflection on it. It just is Nero's voice.
Yeah, yeah. So my theory is that they could potentially switch him back to Nero whenever and if ever he's introduced into the anime.
Maybe he gets older and he has a different voice, but then you have Nero sounding exactly like Dante, which would also be weird. Like they do a time skip.
Yeah, I'm thinking that's what's going to happen. It seems like from the leak that we've seen for season 2, there's going to be some kind of time skip,
It's just
for better or worse.
a strange decision though, man. Um, so now that we've talked about the side character Dante, we should probably talk about the actual main character.
The main character.
Mary Arkham.
Yes. You
Um,
mean Lieutenant Arkham?
Lieutenant Arkham, yeah, of course. So the show took some interesting liberties with Lady, who is a character that's originally from Devil May Cry 3, where she has a bit of a similar arc, where she's fighting Dante at first, but then becoming his friend by the end of the game due to their shared experience of dealing with evil family members. The show instead made Lady into this weird super cop government lapdog who doesn't do any of the cool stuff she does in the game. She's got this horrible foul sailor's mouth, constantly swearing at even like weird inappropriate times, and just the use of explicit language is so forced, and it makes it really hard to take this show seriously. Nothing was learned from Castlevania. Nothing was learned from Castlevania because we're still getting corny lines like carrot munching motherfucker, Roger fucking rabbit reject, and laugh your fucking cotton puff tail off. All of which made me wince so hard I thought I was gonna pop an ulcer.
And that's such an interesting thing. I remember in our circle of friends, like people are like, "Oh, this is going to be good." It's a DMC anime. And at first, when I saw the teaser, I was like, "Oh, this looks promising." Then I saw from the people who brought you Castlevania. I said, "Ah, fucking shit."
No, you went no.
No. And I was hoping, I was like, okay, maybe it's not going to be bad. But they actually doubled down completely. So much so. It's insane. It would make Vizzy Pop look, tame with her writing. Like, god damn it. Lady, everything Lady says, not a curse word is a fucking adjective. Every other fucking word is. It's, as you said, she's pretty unbearable.
It's hard, dude. Like it's hard to listen to. Like even somebody who's not watching, who's just like in the room would hear that and be like, "What the fuck? What are you watching?"
Yeah, it's like, man,
like
calm
it's
down.
Just, this like kind of writing is not cool. What you're writing is not cool. It's laughable at best and really annoying at worst. An unspoken part of the Devil May Cry style. This was stated from Kamiya from the inception of Dante, at least up until 5, was that Dante could be a cool action hero without smoking, drinking, or swearing. Everything about Lady's dialogue in this show is the opposite of what makes the characters appealing in the games. The swearing makes it seem like she's trying really hard, and a lot of the cool factor is like the effortless way that they carry themselves in the games,
Yeah, you could be funny, you could be goofy and silly. You can get haha and hee hees from funny things without being like carrot chomping motherfucker. Laugh your
It's
potty tail
not
off.
funny though. It's so edgy.
No,
Like it's
no.
so edgy, dude.
As you said, it's very forced.
It just made me grit my teeth the whole time. It's like, what are you doing? There's no way you thought that this was like.
And
I don't know.
I think what it was is, I hate to say this, but it's a little bit of part of an agenda where Boss Girl doesn't take shit from no one, and they're like, well, Lady kind of wore like a schoolgirl outfit in D3. What can we make her into an empowered woman that she doesn't take shit from no one? Give her stupid fucking Senkai fucking JP armor when she works for the United States of America,
Yeah.
and make her curse like a motherfucker, and give her like high tech fucking like magnetic fucking handguns and like jump boots. So completely devoid of what the character was.
Yeah, because Lady's whole deal in the games was just that she's using a whole different slew of different firearms and stuff and just doing crazy shit like blowing up shit and then like throwing out Uzis and shit like that. And it's just like they made her into this weird like super cop character. So
yeah,
I did actually come up with an idea that I wanted your opinion on, right? The whole time I was watching the show, I was coming up with an idea for Lady's character in my head, right? For a way that they could have incorporated her into the show and kept the story the same. I didn't change anything about the story,
Really.
but just a better way that you could have implemented this character into the show, right? So instead of the Dark Comm Squad led by Lady being dressed like the weird Sentai military police, you give each of these team members a unique design based on a utility. You know, not the corny masks or the golden afros or the king guy. I think they said he was supposed to be based on like the lead singer of Nickelback.
Yes, I did see that from somewhere.
Yeah, so fuck all that, right? Instead of that, give them like cool designs with a weapon specialization, such as like a sniper, a heavy weapons guy, a close quarter specialist, or whatever. You focus on the group dynamics instead of individualizing Lady's role as their like leader, and tie it more into her story so that she sees these team members as a surrogate family for the one that she lost. Maybe have them all team up on Dante instead of the 1v1 in his apartment, right? That way you could show like how this advanced group of soldiers could actually take on a son of Sparta. So, when they all meet their end from the demons when they get locked in that warehouse, right? After that's over, have Lady return through the area after it's been destroyed and collect their weapons to use against the demons, turning her into the walking arsenal, which I feel like would add additional depth to the character, emphasize her hatred for demons, and provide like an in-universe reason as to why she has all these weapons.
Very nice. Very nice.
But instead, we didn't get that, you know. So
yeah, no, it was interesting to talk. Let's talk about Darkcom. They have like all these crazy names: Sentry, King, Ninja. What the fuck did everyone else do besides Ninja? Besides have like the fucking blades? I don't know what they did. You have
specialist wise, I have no idea. I think the king guy had like gauntlets or something, but I really don't remember.
but you don't see him do shit. The most you see
No.
this fucking advanced, like super elite demon hunting squad is them use handguns to shoot down a bunch of fucking demon immigrants. That's like the most they've ever did in the show. Otherwise, they got their ass whooped and fucking died. So I don't, and including them was fucking dumb. Me, on the other hand, how I would handle Lady's introduction to the story. Fuck Darkcom.
Yeah, in general.
Fuck the whole season story of season 1. Just do a fucking retelling of DMC3. Just
yeah,
unapologetically
but
just do it.
That's what it seems like. That's the closest thing that they're trying to do, right? That's the closest kind of comparison you can draw from the games because they have the amulets. They have the red and blue amulets.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole point of the story is to get the amulets together to open the demon world. But they've just functionally replaced Virgil in the story with the White Rabbit.
Yes. You know, if they really wanted to do a retelling of DMC3, they should have had the most important character of the story, which is the Jester.
I know you were going to talk about fucking Jester.
And the exclusion of him, it's because, by the way, spoilers, the whole purpose of Lady's story is to get revenge on her dad who killed her mom. And her dad fucking dies in the show. Or seemingly dies.
Seemingly, yes. We don't know. We don't know if he's gonna come back yet, but it does seem like he got burnt up in the house.
But it's so weird because the season 1 of this is supposed to be a DMC, you know, the story of DMC3. But I feel like if they bring back Arkham, which I think they will, I feel like a lot of people who are supposed to be quote unquote dead are going to be brought back in season 2. It's just going to be DMC3, the story of it.
Yeah.
I just feel like the story is so contrived and like they're going to just do it again. I feel like that's what's going to happen. Yeah. You know, based off of what Castlevania's 4 seasons were. It's just the same shit over and over again.
Yeah.
Sorry, I had to go on a tangent.
Yeah, no. I mean, I understand. I mean, like, okay. So I feel like we should talk about the White Rabbit a little bit since the White Rabbit's like the whole point of the story, basically. So the White Rabbit, like I said, in function is basically a stand-in for Virgil. His backstory, to me at least, was mildly intriguing, He's revealed in episode 6 to be a human who had crossed into Makai through a portal and spent his time living there to try to help the more human-like demons survive, right? He develops some kind of technology where he can uh, locate and then hold the portals open for longer. He gets into an altercation basically where he opens up a portal trying to escape from this giant monster. They run through it, and then Lady and the Dark-Com goons are on the other side of the door. And what I thought was really strange, right, is in the episode before that where they get locked in the warehouse, Lady sees those people, right, the human-like demons with their kid, and she remarks how she had never seen a family before, right? But a bunch of human-like demons ran through that portal, and then there was a bunch of kids and young ones there too, I'm pretty sure.
Yes.
So that just wasn't true.
You know what it was?
They have the giant monster chase after them, right? And there's that part, but like all the people that they shoot in that scene are like relatively human looking. So what was the point of making it be like, oh, I've never seen this before when she was responsible for his origins? Like that didn't make any sense to me.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense. You know why?
Why?
Because they forgot.
No. I mean, maybe, yeah.
No, that's definitely an inconsistency of the writing, is they just fucking forgot. They forget shit. That's why I believe that Adi Shankar thought that Nero was Dante. That the reminder of that fucking firmly is implanted in my brain that, that happened. Yeah, so White Rabbit was an original character from the manga series where he was a full-blown demon. He wasn't a human, wearing a rabbit mask. He was just straight up demon with, mysterious, motives, just giving jobs to Dante.
I actually didn't know that. I never read like the manga series or anything like that. So I thought he was a completely original character for the show.
No. He's from the manga. And, researching him, just because I'm not going to. But researching him, I saw an interview of Adi Shankar, and he's with these people. I don't know who they were, if they were part of the voice casting or what, but they're like, the interviewer was like, okay, well, which character is most like you? And the two people said that Adi Shankar was most like the White Rabbit, and Adi Shankar, I am the White Rabbit. He explicitly says that the White Rabbit is based off of him, and particularly because of his history. When he originally lived in India, he would see poverty, and he would ask, why are people living like this? And when he went to America, after he immigrated to America, he realized he had survivor's guilt, and he's like, oh my God, I was living such like, polished, aristocratic life over there, and people were suffering around me. And that's kind of what the White Rabbit's whole objective is. He wants to break down the barriers between Makai and Earth, so that way all the demons that are, the humanized ones can live there and be free. But at the same time, as he opens the portal, all the other fucking demons are going to come in there, and he completely understands this. My issue with that is, who is, enslaving the demons in Makai? Mundus. And if you open up a portal for all the demons to come there, ideally, Mundus would come there since he wanted to take over Earth. So fundamentally, the White Rabbit's fucking plan is dumb as shit.
Just doom everybody to slavery under Mundus, basically.
Yeah, it's dumb as shit. He's like, I'm doing this to liberate my people. But he literally recognizes that other demons are going to come here too. And so what? Things are going to get better. And it's like, no.
The logic was dumb. That over time things would equal out, but I don't understand. Like, Mundus would totally just take over everything.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's why I'm like, this villain sucks in general. One thing is like, one small notice before we find out his history is that when he's, initially first meets Dante, he has the RPG, him and Dante, and then turns it towards, a bus full of kids. Well, why? I know why, to like, deter Dante, but his whole thing is to not kill innocent people and things like that, but he totally does. So he's just, his, morals doesn't make any sense.
A little inconsistent, yeah.
Yeah, it's a he's a cool design villain. I like how he talks. He's very charismatic, but objectively, he is all over the place. And I just feel like the the writers behind him didn't really understand to have it, him be truly, motivated. He's just I get, they wanted him to be a hypocrite to some degree, but it doesn't work out. It isn't like, oh, he is a hypocrite. It's just very blatant without any regard to it.
Yeah, he is, and then he becomes like he kills that like that blood carrying demon at the end, and then he just becomes this generic giant monster with the Sparta sword.
Yeah, which was I did predict that at like episode 7. I'm like, oh, let me guess, he's going to turn into a big fucking monster, and
It's
he
literally
does. And I'm
like
like,
the end of like an MCU movie, dude.
and I'm here thinking, I'm like, God damn it, you guys could have turned him into something else.
He could have been like a cool like weird in between threat, that wasn't like explicitly evil like the demons, um, but had like his own motivations and goal. He could have been like a cool third factor in the story, but instead he was just an asshole. So
Yeah, that's how he kind of, from what I've gathered in the manga, that's what he was. He was just doing his own shit.
like also
But
let's dismantle Darkcom, right? But my last ditch plan is to have my mole on the inside grab my teleportation portal opening technology and bring it back to them. Like he said for him to get rid of it, but like he was gone. So what guarantee would he have not had that he was just gonna like, because as soon as he gets in the chopper, Baines gets a hold of the portal opening thing, and now your nation and like your people are doomed more than ever, because not only is Mundus terrorizing them, but the Americans are opening their portals up and indiscriminately shooting missiles and shit all up in there.
it's an allegory, American imperialism. Yeah, that plan fell apart. I don't like when your big like backup plan completely fumbles like that. There needs to be other shit for it to be like, oh my god, this bit him in the ass. It was a very easy cop out
Mm-hmm.
for that to happen, and I felt like the writers wanted a way for them for Dark Comp to get their hands on the teleporting device in the easiest way possible
Yeah, just
without
as a
really
setup
setting it
for
up.
season 2.
Yeah, not a whole lot of setup, just get it out of the way, which
Yeah,
is another issue
then
with
they
the show.
immediately get a foothold in the demon world, which is like, okay, either Mundus is letting them do this, or it's like there's got to be some reason, because there's no way that they just immediately conquered that shit and pulled up in there immediately. Like that's
Yeah.
equally as stupid. Um, so I guess a brief conversation should be had about the politics, right? Because yeah, I mean it's a little difficult to talk about this show without talking about the obvious allegories that are being um kind of thrown in your face constantly, to be honest. Especially with that ending, you know, when
Oof.
American Idiot plays as they open up a portal to the demon realm and shoot a fucking cruise missile in it, which highlights all of the demons like by thermal and then blows them up, right?
Mm. Yeah,
So,
man.
yeah, Devil May Cry is not a game that has anything to do with um, political ideas or anything of that nature, or the government or anything. There's so much forcefully inserted politics into this project based on a game series that had nothing to do with it. You know, Devil May Cry is not supposed to be an allegory for these kinds of things. Devil May Cry at its core is a family drama. The entire theme of the series is that devils are inherently evil by nature. Devils never cry because they have no tears to shed, no concept of empathy or emotion. Except for Sparta, and because of that, he was strong, right? Devil May Cry is not supposed to be an allegory for the war on terror, the Bush administration, the conflict in the Middle East, immigration policies, or whatever else you want to talk about. It just feels like Adi Shankar wanted to cram as much into this project as possible, when the games blatantly lay out their themes at the end of every entry. Demons lack empathy and a heart, which fundamentally makes them lesser than humans. Slaying demons with cool stylus action is the game part, but the soul of the series is these characters and the theme, which the show alters to poor effect because it wants to cram all these allegories for real life tragedies in there. And I am more so upset at the waste of potential that this show could have had, because Devil May Cry is really cool. And instead of getting a really cool story about the game that I care a lot about, there was all this talk about like politics and shit instead. And I just don't understand what purpose any of that had in the story.
No, I thought it was wildly inappropriate. It's a very big disservice for people who are interested in the series, and this is their way into it by watching this anime, and they go back and play the games, and it's just completely, um, the best way I can describe it is disingenuous. I don't need to see a series about a dude who hunts demons in a place that's an allegory for 9/11, which it seems like that's what the show is. I got that from the second episode with like all the terroristic attacks and people, pred- uh, ladies prejudiced towards demons being an allegory to people being prejudiced in 2000s after 9/11 to Middle Eastern people. I just don't understand. It's not needed. It's just misplaced, and I feel like when what we found out today before we did the episode is that Adi Shankar uh, got to America 2 days before 9/11, and it seems like that really stuck with him, and he was just trying to find some way of incorporating that part of history into a show, and he felt like that this was the best case. And again, it's not. Of when I see DMC, it's funny, it's goofy. He use all these cool weapons. They're God forsake, use a fucking electric guitar that summons bats and shit. I was wanting to see that. I didn't want to see demons hijacking a fucking plane and blow it up with explosives.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I feel the exact same way, Like I said,
Yeah,
this series is one of my personal favorites, and it's just like the this stuff feels wholly inappropriate to shove into something that a lot of people care about. This is not an original IP where you could give him the credit of constructing this narrative and this world to fit this story he wanted to tell. This feels like a weird perversion of something that was enjoyed by a lot of people for the sake of implementing these things, because he knows his niche seems to be sticking with projects that are adaptations, right?
the best way I could describe what has happened to the DMC series for the Netflix show is that it's been bastardized, and that's a term I was using very frequently while discussing it with you. It's just like he decided to fuck with it and change things just for the sake of being different for no fucking good reason.
Yeah.
I just don't like that. And I mean, yeah, you can. There could have been an interesting way of making immigration allegories for the demons that are good, but I think it was kind of done in poor taste
It was not handled
because
tastefully. Yeah.
no, because again, they're fucking demons, and like you might as well like whenever people do this, like allegories for like minorities and things like that, you might as well just do it with the people in mind rather than like fucking aliens and minorities. It's just like there's no fucking point. But I see what you're doing. Just go full throttle instead of fucking cutting corners and trying to fit it into an existing IP. That's
I just don't get it, because it's like, what are you trying to say? And it's like, what is the point of this? As a Because you're just creating like controversy and talking points for your show, which I guess is what you want to do, right? But what you had the opportunity to do was to tell a really engaging story through a prolonged narrative, through the medium of something like a TV series, about family and about these games, right? And these characters and stuff, and explore them deeper. So it's like, why did you take that opportunity to do this? It's puzzling to me, as among many other decisions that they made with the show were.
and I think that would have been a little bit more engaging because people could probably relate to the family stuff more to an event, an American tragedy. If you want to reach to other people outside of the United States, a family drama could have related to people outside of here rather than an American travesty that was particularly done by a terrorist, which is hard to fucking relate. Like if someone from fucking France watched this, I don't think they would relate to it as much as a fucking US citizen that
Probably not. But to me,
and
like
even
even being a U.S. citizen and watching it, is it's like to me this doesn't resonate with me that much. I mean,
ex-
I was in that alive in that time period,
right,
and to me that's just it just feels distasteful, regardless.
right. And I was going to go further than that. People who lived during 9/11 for the most part, it's hard for me to like to live through it because I was a fucking child. Most of the demographic that's going to be watching this are going to be people who are within their 20s and whatever. I think it would have been much better just because it could go on forever to talk about family stuff rather than this travesty and having demons be behind 9/11 in this world is super fucked up and just disregarding what the fuck happened then.
Yeah, I agree. I think this is a good time to bring up this quote that I had saved. This is a quote by Adi Shankar, talking about Devil May Cry.
Okay.
So, Devil May Cry has this raw, untamed cool that most video games can't touch. There's a primal electricity to it. Guns, swords, leather, demons. But under all of that, there's soul. It's a Shakespearean tragedy, but it's also a love story. Two brothers forged by the same blood, shattered by the same loss, and driven down opposing paths by the gravity of grief. There's real emotional architecture beneath the action. The longing, the regret, the unspoken I miss you buried in every strike. Their war isn't just with each other, it's with the ghosts they both carry. Now, to me, that sounds like a guy who fully understands what this series is supposed to be about. And with that, I propose the question, where the fuck was any of that in the TV show?
Yeah, that's a me out from there. I was really thinking you're going to say some like stupid shit. But no, that's a very profound way of looking at DMC beyond like the surface level of it. There was none of that. There was none of that at all. That's so crazy that he said that and then fundamentally made this fucking piece of shit.
It's like you get it though. You get it, but you're not. But why did you do this then? Like I don't understand.
You know what it is? This is what I truly feel like it is. This is literally slop that is being built for the foundation for that story to be done. And I don't trust Adi Shankar to deliver a story like that at all. I've seen what happened with Castlevania. Again, that one's different because most people didn't play the games and the lore was kind of like all over the place and you could do whatever the fuck you want with it. But when you have something as established as DMC that is, very now I'm not saying religious like as in like it's being religious, but like everything has been like the story has not faltered or changed. It's been same, to a fucking T. And it decided to do this. It's just again, I think, trying to fit in, slop to build that story. And I don't see it ever happening,
It's just
truthfully.
so unfortunate, dude, because it's like the show had so much potential and it had like the spotlight to get people's eyes on it and stuff.
Yeah.
And it's just like the using an established IP to put like your own personal stuff into like a lot of people, a lot of directors and creators and stuff insert their own personal trauma and things like that into their stories. And I'm not saying you can't do that, but you got to do stuff like that subtly and tastefully, When you have this evil vice president talking about how like God will always protect us, like it's just and it's such like 13-year-old r/atheism redditor type shit. This is like this story feels like fan fiction created by a preteen boy and not a fleshed out story directed by an experienced professional. The opportunity to get more eyes on a very cool and storied game series was squandered because this project doesn't feel like it was given to somebody with enough respect for the source material. He clearly understands it though. I just feel like if this person genuinely cared about Devil May Cry for what it is, he wouldn't be forcing so much of his own personal feelings into the project. This entire anime feels like a self-gratifying excuse for Adi Shankar to voice his opinions on topics to people who did not ask.
Mm. Yeah, very much what I've gathered from anime in its complete entirety. So, I have something to ask you.
Okay.
Had it written down.
Is this
Do
the
you feel
question?
this is the question?
The question. All right, here we go. Moving into the question segment. Let's go.
All right. Who's cooler, Dante from the DMC 2025 anime, or Dante from the DMC reboot?
Okay. That's
No,
not
I'm
what
fucking with you.
Okay,
No, 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 no,
alright.
no, 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 I'm fucking with you. No, my question is, do you think that this anime was to grab, to retain attention to the DMC IP in hopes to jumpstart DMC 6 or whatever else they're trying to start with the series? Because I felt like this coming out of nowhere was this in mind to do it to jumpstart the series again.
Okay,
Give
so
it some air
you're
and
asking if you think this series is some like a bit of a ploy by Capcom to get more eyes on the series before releasing content in the future.
Mhm.
That's definitely possible. I mean, we saw that they put out a DMC anime back when DMC 2 was out a long time ago. So, it is definitely possible. As I mentioned at the beginning though, it's really hard to tell because every time they have tried to make a game without Itsuno, it's tanked horribly with the exception of DMC 1. Every time. So, I do believe that there are talented people at Capcom who could produce a new game. Um, I mean, like the people behind like a Street Fighter 6 and stuff like that are all very talented people. So I do believe it is possible. And there might be something in the future which would be cool, but I just I wish they were more careful with who they handed it to, you know?
Yeah.
And apart from like the story stuff, the anime looks polished for the most part, but then you have like these ugly CG scenes and stuff like that, which also kind of makes it look a little not polished. Which wouldn't get me excited for a new game if I was somebody who was watching this for the first time. Um so maybe, but
Yeah.
I don't know cuz I don't know what's in the future for Devil May Cry.
Well,
I am kind of thinking they might remaster those older games because they are pretty old at this point, and that feels like an easy cash grab to me. Even though they put out that collection not that long ago too.
yeah. I mean, we already know there's going to be a season 2. Even before this anime release, they're already greenlit for a season for see
And we got
animated
the setup with Virgil, right?
setup with Virgil, the sneak peek of Dante's time skip design
In an
being more of
Evanescence music video of all things.
all things. So I feel like we're going to probably get some potential news of something for the DMC game series, albeit whether if it's a remaster of the original trilogy or a definitive edition version of DMC reboot game.
That would be cool to get new people into it if that's what they want to do.
No, like a definitive, like they're remastering the reboot game is what I'm
Oh
saying.
no,
But
no, that
you
no.
never,
Let's
but you
not
never
worry about
answer,
that.
but you never answer my question. Who's cooler, Dante from this?
The show Dante is definitely cooler than the reboot Dante. That's not fair. That's not fair. That whole reboot was horrible. I don't even want to talk about it. So my question to you,
Mm. Oh,
is
is this?
yeah, I got one for you too. Don't worry.
Oh, no, okay.
So with something like a video game adaptation, right? Why do you think that there is often a disconnect between the what the creatives are doing with the show and what the fans expect? Because we've seen a couple different examples of this being pulled off
Yes.
semi well, like sometimes pretty good to pretty bad, right? So like good examples I think of are like the Fallout TV show came out recently. I don't know if you checked that out, but pretty positive reception to that. feels like they kept most of what people liked about Fallout in the show. Um, but then you have something like the Halo show, right? Which is very similarly, um, the person took a established IP with established lore and stories and stuff like that, right? And created this weird divorced off branch thing, with a story and characterization that doesn't match the original source material. So why do you think that there is that disconnect?
I think to me, what it seems like most of the time with like the very bad examples isn't some kind of ego boost. So like, oh, we could do better than that. We could change this. I think that's what it primarily is a sense of ego instead of developing and expanding on what is already well done. But, for the ones that have done a fantastic job, like the Fallout series, and in my opinion, Arcane. What's great about Arcane is that the series itself is fucking animated beautifully, acted phenomenally. The music is awesome. They use different sources of media while in a 3D animated show. And the the show is much better than the fucking game. I don't want to play League, but god damn it, when I was watching Arcane, I wanted to watch every time the episode ended, I would put on the next one immediately. This time around, I'm watching DMC anime and I'm fucking leaning back in my chair. I'm thinking, God damn it, is it over? Oh fuck, I have 8 more episodes to go. That was the first one. So to me, it's an ego boost. They don't want to expand on what's done already well enough. They don't want to. They just want to change things because they think it's for the better, and the changes they made are drastically worse than what was already established.
Mm-hmm.
That's how I feel about it. It's a sense of ego.
I see. So you think they're kind of handing it off to writers and stuff who are too boastful to like. Okay. So I watched a video about Star Wars the other day, right? It was a little
Hmm.
short that popped up in my feed about Star Wars, and it was Mark Hamill at a panel talking about how he was. This was kind of out of context, honestly, because it's a short, right? But he was kind of. It seemed like he was talking about how he was dissatisfied with the direction they took Luke Skywalker's character in those sequel movies, right? With
Yeah.
him wanting to fucking kill Kylo Ren and shit like that, being an altruistic character in the old movies. So he was at the panel talking about how like he had a conversation with the director, I think it was Ryan Johnson, right? Who he was like, "Oh, we got to pay attention to, what the fans want too." And Ryan Johnson in effect told him like, "This is my story. I'm going to handle this how I want. Like just say the lines, bro."
Yeah, I mean that kind of goes back to what I was saying, sense of ego.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Is there's like a level of ambition with like these projects and stuff that I think blinds the creatives to the decisions that they're making at the time. Um, we've seen stuff like the Witcher show, right, where Henry Cavill was very vocal about how he was displeased with the direction they were taking it and how he wanted to be more accurate to like the books. Um, and when voicing that opinion, they found him difficult to work with, and then he got canned off the show, right?
Yeah, I believe a writer straight up just said that he was annoying.
Yeah, because
That,
he cared, right?
yeah.
So you get these, instead of having these people who care and want to make the best product about the thing that they have investment into, you have these people with ulterior motives, trying to make money and stir up conversation on Twitter and shit like that, instead of just trying to tell well fleshed out stories, that are gonna actually stick with people. You know, just
Yeah.
commercializing the whole product and experience and just not putting that level of heart and soul into it. Which I mean, how much can you expect from like, um, the big wigs at the top? People who are on Netflix who greenlit this shit and stuff who only see dollar signs, right?
Some of the Netflix stuff like Arcane was done phenomenally. Only 2 seasons. Pretty good fucking show.
Also, shout out to the One Piece, the live action One Piece. That was pretty good
That
too.
yeah. That one's great because that one expands on it and takes different turns, but it ultimately tells the same fucking story.
And also Oda was there the entire time with a musket to the writer's head,
That-
making sure that he was gonna do this story justice.
yeah, which is interesting that in the aspect of DMC. No, I don't know if anyone at Capcom was there, which it seems wasn't. Gave it over
Well,
to Audi.
that's a good question though, because it's like who would be there, right? Because
Yeah,
Kamiya's vision for Dante and Devil May Cry is not what the series is now, and it hasn't been that since the first game. Itsuno is a developer, and he changed a lot about how the character of Dante is and works, right? But he's a game dev, he's not like a full creative. He was still adapting stuff that Kamiya had come up with. So who really would be in charge of that,
yeah. Well, it was Adi Shankar, and he completely fumbled it.
He did.
And yeah,
He did.
and
Now,
this man. Okay,
no, okay, hold on though. To say, much like we did in the Invincible episode, don't harass Adi Shankar. Don't harass anybody attached with this show. The only reason we are so critical is because I, for one, care a lot about this series, and I care a lot about good writing and good stories. I wanted this series and this anime in particular to be a good example of what these games had to offer so that people could get more into it. And then maybe it could drum up more excitement for something like a sequel. That would be really great. But that is not justification to send anybody, hateful words or death threats or anything like that. We don't support that here. So I'm just going to say that.
as much as I'm a perpetual hater, again, just don't. Um, just top it off. Going off of things. Adi Shankar has expressed interest in Berserk, and seeing what he's done with Castlevania, seeing what he has done with DMC. I do not want him to touch Berserk. I don't
Berserk
want to
is
see.
also a series that has like way more heavy subject matter and stuff in it. And with how distastefully the stuff was handled in this show, in my opinion, I feel like that would be a setup for something like really really horrendous to watch, honestly.
I would legitimately crash out if that ever did happen. I don't think we would make an episode. I would not want to because I would
The
probably
level
tear
of
up my.
hate would be way too strong.
Yeah,
Fair enough. Yeah.
yeah, but
I think that about
I
wraps it up for the episode though, because I don't really have much more to say on the anime. There's the setup for the second season, right, where Dante is frozen, and Virgil is apparently working for Mundus, which is another
again
interesting choice.
not a very good choice. An interesting one at that. It's not understanding the character as it seems,
Yeah,
and him
working for
saying
the
I am
guy
the storm,
that blew up my freaking house.
and Virgil saying I am the storm. Yeah, the show doesn't
Yeah.
understand.
Fan
Subtle.
fictiony dialogue, and
Yeah,
also those remixes of the songs that they played in the show. Did not like those either. Gotta say,
nope, not at all.
should have just used the original songs. Honestly.
All in all, the DMC anime is a big ol'
Yeah, and I was going into this really wanting to say something positive about it, because a lot of people were saying some negative stuff about this show. The show was getting a lot of negative press, and I was like, well, I don't think it'll be that bad. And then it was. It did upset me greatly, and I
yeah.
can't lie about that. So
Yeah, for once we're not in the minority. We are a part of everyone agrees with us. We are
yeah,
at the
because if we
helms
said
of
the show was good, we would have been on like a that would have been like three strikes, dude. We would have had to stop the podcast for sure.
yeah.
Um, do you have any more closing thoughts before we cap off the episode though?
I don't have much to say. This show really wore me down. I don't think I've seen it. There hasn't been a show in a long time where I wanted it to be over. I really like. Yeah, watching Invincible is a slog, but this one,
I will say I did feel that way watching Invincible, and I feel like Invincible's runtime of being like 45-minute episodes made that much worse.
I feel like with both of them, it was just like, when is this going to stop? Is it going to get
When
worse?
is it going to
I hope.
stop?
Is it going to possibly get worse? I hope it doesn't get worse, and it
You're in the
does.
infinite Tsukuyomi being tortured for 72 hours. watching Invincible clips.
The Invincible clips. But yeah, that's all I have to say for Devil May Cry 2025, only on Netflix, produced by Adi Shankar.
Yeah. Once again, don't send him any hate. Don't be hateful towards any of the people who were responsible in the production of this show. It's not that deep. Please check us out on Spotify. If you felt any way about the show, if you had something you wanted to say, please leave it in the comments on the YouTube. Next time, we're going to be talking about the Oblivion remaster. And we may have a little surprise guest on the show.
Yes.
So, yeah, if you want to fill people in for what's going to happen next time.
Yeah, I unfortunately will not be attending next episode. With all the ad revenue we made off of the Invincible shorts, I will be taking an hour or 2 hour trip on a yacht. Thank you, everyone. But truthfully,
thank you, Jeffrey Dean Morgan, for your portrayal as Conquest and making us so many YouTube $1 billion bucks.
But in reality, I just don't. I've not played Oblivion. I'm not going to play the remaster, so I have nothing to contribute. But I expect our fill-in guest to be giving the same energy as me, so he has a lot on his table.
Yeah. So hopefully you guys will enjoy that. If you've made it to the end of this episode, thank you so much for watching. Thank you so much for checking us out, and we are going to see you next time. Bye.
Bye.